네, 안녕하십니까. 지금부터 글로벌 코리아 컨퍼런스 교육 세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 한국교육개발원 반상진 원장님께서 인사 말씀을 하시겠습니다.
예, 안녕하십니까. 반갑습니다. 한국교육개발원 원장 반상진입니다.
Good morning. I am Pan Sang-jin. I am president of Korea Educational Development Institute, or KEDI.
교육 세션에
I would like to thank all the participants for attending the Global Korea Convention 2020 higher education session. I would like to thank
연구회 성경민 이사장님께서
Mr. Song Kyung-yoon, who is the chairperson of NRC, and all the organizing committee for putting this session together.
국제협력의 성과를
The Global Korea Convention is an opportunity for us to stocktake all of the various initiatives put forth by the various Korean public agencies and research institutes. And, KEDI is very honored to take a part in this very important convention. Education is one of the key sustainable development goals
영역 중에서도 인간의
of the 17 SDGs.
통하며 경제 및
Education runs across various goals, and it is one of the key features that can promote the human rights and equality of all people. So Korean government has been working very hard to support the educational efforts of the partner economies, and we have been involved in promoting international cooperation with a specific focus on education and improving the quality of education across the world. But as you know, due to COVID-19, all of the international cooperation efforts are challenged.
이러닝이라든지 원격 교육 또
However, we have other opportunities such as e-learning and remote education. So these technology-based education can actually substitute for physical educational delivery during the pandemic. And there has been a great interest in taking advantage of this new opportunity.
교육개발에서는
KEDI,
통해서
through this session today, would like to foster discussion on education utilizing advanced ICT, and we would like to look at our current status and challenges forward so that we can further promote development of e-learning and ICT-based education.
섹션이 지금까지 우리가 일구원
I hope that this session will
차라고
help us reflect upon our past achievements in educational sector and also to be able to chart our way forward. And I would like to thank
유네스코
Ms. Soo-hyang Choi, who is the director of UNESCO UNEVOC, who has delivered a video, a speech to congratulate our event. And I would also like to thank Dr. Woo-jung Kim, Director of National Institute for International Education, and Dr. Yoon Kim, Dean of the Office of International Cooperation at Korea National Open University, and Mr. Chang-hwan Kim from KEDI, and Mr. Han-gil Nam, who is the project manager at EBS, for agreeing to be presenters for today. And I would also like to thank our panelists, Ms. Haewon Park of Ministry of Education, and Professor Dong-ju Choi of Sookmyung Women's University, and Mr. Kyu-hee Hwang of CRIVET.
한국교육개발원 관계자 선생님
I would like to also thank all the staff and members of KEDI who have
건강하시고
made this session possible. I wish you safety and health throughout the year. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much.
한국교육개발원 반상진 원장님의
And it was an opening speech from Director Sang Jin Pan from KT. Now we are going to invite Director Soo Yang Choi from UNESCO UNEVOC for congratulatory remarks.
영상으로 축사를
She sent her message in a video.
반상진 원장님, 컨퍼런스 관계자, 참석자, 발표자 여러분,
Director Ban and also all the distinguished guests and speakers, panelists, I congratulate you on the successful opening of the convention. I'm sure it was quite challenging to put it together, but I believe that this is a very timely topic. In the 70s, international cooperation meant international exchanges, meaning actual meetups among people from different countries. In the 1990s, we began to use global more than international. So global efforts, global cooperation was about pursuing common goals for the global community. But I believe that sometimes our understanding is still limited to the 1970s level. Due to the COVID-19, digitalization is being accelerated, which limits people's movement and physical meetings. So international cooperation can now take place in small cities in Korea like Jincheon and Sejong, just as it has been in international cities like Paris and Geneva. But it requires international mindset and leadership to lead these efforts. So this digital era is asking us to think more globally. But at the same time, we also need to look inward. Korea is a leading country in terms of digital technology. So this area, we make a lot of investment. Around the world, we are seeing explosive demand for digital education, online education as well. And also, digitalization is creating a gap between countries. So, higher education is now emerging as a niche area in the realm of international cooperation, global cooperation. Korea was a rare case of transforming itself from recipient to donor country. In that sense, Korea is well positioned to make a great contribution to this area. Many people want to learn about Korea, but just because you have certain popularity, it doesn't make you a leader immediately. You need to have leadership qualities. In Korea, so far, a lot of male leaders were active. But gender equality is really important. In the past, Korea made a mistake of sending male dominant delegation to international forum. But we need to think about gender equality and other code of conduct that's accepted and followed at the global stage. So when Korea has that, Korea can become a more better leader. Thank you very much.
정말 우리 한국을 빛내는 글로벌
So thank you very much,
여전사라 그러면 안
Ms. Soo Yang Choi, Director at UNESCO UNEVOC. She is very active in the international cooperation arena. Thank you very much for that very insightful
그럼 바로
remarks.
이어서 그
Now,
발제 토론 들어가기 전에
before
간단하게 오늘 그 참석해
we
주신
hear the presentations,
관계자분들과 함께 기념 촬영이 있겠습니다.
we're going to take a commemorative photo with the presenters and the panelists. So please rise to the stage.
제가 알고 있는 일정과 이거는 스텝과 진행 측의 미스인 것 같습니다. 저한테는 지금 와 있기를 기념 촬영으로 돼 있는데
Apologies. On my agenda, it says a commemorative photo, but I think I was misinformed. So at the end of the session, perhaps we could take the commemorative photo.
그냥 편집을 해서 바꾸면 될 텐데 상당히
So were this a filming session, we could just edit this whole thing out. But anyway,
그러면 바로 이어서
that was just a joke.
15분부터
Now we are going to
발제 네 편의 주제 발제와 함께
hear the four presentations and then go into our panel discussion afterwards. We will have each speaker come up to the podium to present in the order that is presented in the agenda. I am from KEDI. I am Yoon Jong-hyuk, and I'm Vice President of Korean Educational Development Institute.
별로 없는 경우인데 오늘 여러 가지 많은 추억을 제가 남기고 있는
So yes, I think I'm doing an okay job as a moderator today. Well, the first presenter will be speaking about the trends in international cooperation in the higher education sector. We have with us Dr. Woo Jung-kim, who is the Director of National Institute for International Education. You have 15 minutes.
Good morning. Good morning. As introduced, I am Woo Jung-kim from National Institute for International Education. First of all, it is my great pleasure and honor to deliver my presentation at Global Korea Convention 2020. And I want to thank KEDI and Director Ban Sang-jin and other organizers and all the organizing staff for their effort and for their invitation. So today I want to talk about the current status of overseas study market, and then I want to talk about the programs run by my organization. So first, the trend of global higher education. So around the world, the portion of students who study abroad has steadily increased from 2.0 million in 1998 to current 5.6 million as of 2018. Overall, doubling. So there are some factors behind this. For example, people are more motivated to have a better capacity to increase knowledge, and also it is promoted by the government policy, and also language and cultural barriers are lowered compared to the past as well. There's an economic benefit as well coming from hosting a foreign country. For example, in the U.S., the overseas student contributed about $4.5 billion to the U.S. economy. And as you can see here, the English-speaking countries and European countries take up about 50% of overseas students. In the case of Korea, we took about 0.1% in 2020. Now the portion went up to about 1.7% as of year 2013. The British Council actually published a report about the higher education situation in Europe. So, according to the report, the global higher education sector is becoming more competitive, and government is providing a lot of support to internationalize its higher education. And also, each country is adjusting its higher education internationalization strategy in order to attract more foreign countries. In the case of Finland, they're also connecting government support for educational facilities with a foreign students' presence. We had a Study Korea project. The project's goal is to attract 200,000 foreign countries. Last year, we met 150,000 foreign countries, but due to the COVID-19 situation, currently the foreign students number about 153,000. So Korea attracts mostly Asian students. So they take up about 91.9% of all foreign students studying in Korea. And among the foreign students studying in Korea, China takes the #1 position, followed by Vietnam, Uzbekistan, Mongolia. Still, most students study bachelor's degree in Korea and particularly prefer universities in Seoul. But starting 2018, outside Seoul, universities is also attracting more foreign students as well. And for particular some areas, for example, doctorate degree and language course outside Seoul, universities attract a lot of foreign students as well. This year, the biggest challenge was COVID-19. COVID-19 impacted greatly universities in terms of attracting foreign students. The online learning platform is utilized much more, and also we need to customize education content depending on the student's home country. Now, I'd like to talk about the three main programs pursued by my organization. So we want to promote global human resources. So to that end, we invite and host or manage foreign students in Korea. So to attract foreign students, we have education fair, and we had a physical education fair in the past, but because of the COVID-19, online portion of that event increased a lot. And also, we had a real-time webinar to explain about Korean universities. And also, we also had a promotional booth or promotional events at certain destination countries where COVID-19 is controlled fairly well. So for that, we cooperated with the Korean embassy or consulate on site. And also this year, we cooperated with the Gangwon province and Busan city as well. So hosted by these local governments, we held online Korean education fair targeting foreign students as well. And also we used the social media as well. And we also wanted to promote studying in Korea through the word of mouth by foreign students already studying in Korea and through social media. In terms of the human or foreign talents that we invite and we hosted foreign students recruitment fair as well. And this year, online portion of that event took a big portion as well. And now we have scholarship program as well. It's a Korean government scholarship. It's called GKS. So under this program, we invited about 1,300 students from various countries. But we invited about, 11,000 students from 156 countries, but there is a self-quarantine requirement for up to 2 weeks. But still, this program is going well. But due to quarantine measures, some countries, students from some countries are not allowed to enter Korea. For them, we offer online courses. So far, we have about 6,500 GKS alumni, and they are in leadership position in various sectors, policy making, broadcasting systems in their host countries, their home countries, and also in host country Korea. There are some foreign celebrities in Korea who are GKS alumni, and they are building a bridge between Korea and their home country. So we also work with Korean embassies in these countries. So Korean embassies in these countries support alumni event in those nations. So the GKS alumni are very active in their networking efforts. Now I want to talk about TOPIK. It's a Korean proficiency test. TOPIK is a test that foreign students need to take to show the level of their Korean proficiency. TOPIK, there's a TOPIK level 1, TOPIK level 2, and you need to have a minimum TOPIK 2 grade 3 in order to enter Korean universities. So here it says speaking. Speaking needs to be evaluated as well. That opinion was put forward by the Korean public. So we ran a pilot program about evaluating the speaking abilities of the foreign students. So starting next year, it's going to be a formal test. And now we're also trying to reorganize the test to make it more internet-based test. And also we have a problem bank system that we want to adopt as well. TOPIK takers, people who take a TOPIK test, has been steadily increasing. So recently, about 370,000 people from 83 countries took TOPIK test. But that was last year's number. And this year, due to the COVID-19, about 90,000 students from 87 countries took TOPIK test. But now, as I mentioned earlier, we are trying to move TOPIK to be more internet-based. So going forward, we believe that more students will take TOPIK either online or offline, and that will facilitate their study in Korea. This will conclude my presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Ms. Ujung Kim from NIIED gave us very balanced view of foreign students or foreign student status in Korea. BTS is a very popular Korean boy band. They even ranked #1 on Billboard, and that was actually historic achievement because that was the first instance when non-English or non-Spanish song became #1 song on Billboard. So Korea K-pop is really globally popular. So, and students are getting more and more interested in coming to study in Korea. And given that, I think the presentation was very informative.
한국 고등교육 분야 국제협력 우수 사례로
Next,
이러닝 교육개발
I would like to
협력
invite
사례에 대해서
the speaker, Dr. Yong Kim, who is the Dean of the Office of International Cooperation at the Korea National Open University, who's going to talk about best practices of Korea's international cooperation in higher education. Again, you have 15 minutes.
네, 안녕하십니까. 저는
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Dean of Office of International Cooperation at Korea National Open University, and I am also a professor of the e-learning department in the same university. And it is a great honor for me to have been invited as a speaker to this very important session. I'm going to talk about the various projects in international cooperation to promote e-learning in Korea and elsewhere. We are involved in the project called Unit Win, and we're also involved in the Korea Fund and Trust project. So those are the two projects that I'm going to focus my presentation on.
네, 처음은 이제 유니티언 사업을 말씀드리도록
Let me begin by talking about the Unit Win project.
알고 계실 수도 있을
I think some of you may be aware of what Unit Twin is.
대학끼리 협력하는 사업.
Well, basically, this is a project that promotes collaboration between universities. So we have Handong University, Sookmyung Women's University, Korea National University of Education, and Korea National Open University. So these four universities in Korea are build a twinning relationship with a university in a developing country. Korea National Open University
제공하고 있는 기관입니다.
is just specifically dedicated to distance learning. And this university was founded because there were disadvantaged students who did not have access to higher education because of the high tuition levels. So the government created this open university so that the relatively disadvantaged students could also enjoy the opportunity to engage in higher education. But we realized that developing countries also have this similar need for distance-based higher education. In Korea, we have extensive information and communications infrastructure. Therefore, it is very easy to have our distance education transition into a remote virtual e-learning. But oftentimes, the developing economies have less of a mature infrastructure in place. So we want to support these universities through the Unit Twin project, and we want to support the adoption of appropriate technologies in the developing economy so that they can also deliver e-learning effectively. The Unit Twin project is not a large-scale project. It's actually focused more on research activities. As you know, in the case of ODA projects, most are focused on building the infrastructure, building the hardware, and that also comes with disadvantages. But the Unit Twin project is more of a software-focused project, and we choose topics of concerns for the developing economies trying to introduce distance education. And we try to deliver our experience in introducing technologies to deliver such distance education that can be relevant for the partner country. So usually we do this in a 3-year cycle. So we often make a preliminary site study or visit to understand the situation in the local university. And if there is a need, we develop a training program for curriculum review and distance education. Oftentimes, in the developing economies, the universities are primarily delivering, classroom education, so they're not prepared to deliver e-learning. But in the case of KNOU, we actually have this 40 years of experience in delivering distance education. So we have a wealth of experience in developing curriculum that needs to be delivered across a distance. So currently, we are engaged with the Tribhuvan University of Nepal. Fortunately, Tribhuvan University of Nepal actually had a distance education center in place, and that center asked us for assistance. But the distance education they were delivering was not based on computers or the communications network. They were actually involved in post-mailing the learning materials. So that was the kind of activity that we used to engage in decades earlier. So they actually wanted to deliver internet-based distance education. So they already have this distance education center, but the professors there did not have any experience in delivering internet-based distance education. And in order for a university to be able to do so, there needs to be systems and software solutions in place. Otherwise, there will be a lot of challenges. And they had already installed a software solution called Moodle, and they were testing this out. So we were asked to help them upgrade this Moodle software. And we started this project last year. When we visited Nepal, we we realized that there needs to really change the mindset of the university leadership oftentimes. Fortunately, when we got to Nepal, we realized that since they already have a distance education, the leadership there already has some mindset about promoting distance education. However, this was very small scale, and so we held a seminar inviting the faculty members of the university in Nepal so that we could co-create a distance education model. So we involved the top decision-making people in the university to get their buy-in and get them to get involved in building this distance education model. And we also spoke with the various professors on a very frank basis. We also have a limitation as to how much help we can extend, so we had very frank exchange. We visited Nepal last year. This year we were not able to because of COVID-19, but when we did visit last year, the new Nepal Open University had just opened. And Tribhuvan University is a national university. And so we together thought about perhaps building an alliance between Nepal Open University and the Tribhuvan University. So this is the training program plan that we established. The number of trainees were to be 120 each year, but unfortunately we were not able to do this year due to COVID-19. So we couldn't just sit idly by. We we filmed our content, our learning contents, and we stored this on our thumb drive, and we sent this by DHL courier service. And they share this amongst themselves and use this learning material to do a workshop.
MS 팀즈를 이용한
And we utilize Microsoft Teams because this is the more often used
어차피 학교에 지금 못 오고 계시니까
remote communication platform
본인이 편한 장소에서 저렇게 접속을
in the
해서
developing countries.
연습을 하는 장면.
So each participant is actually at his or her home, and they will jointly watch the video that we had produced, and they held discussions and
그다음에 이제 베트남 하노이
had a
개방대학은
very informative workshop.
베트남 하노이
Now, we also partner with the Hanoi Open University in Vietnam. They already have this
콘텐츠를 만들 수 있는 스튜디오
studio and facilities to create online learning material and contents, and they have a learning management system. All of these were established with the help of KOICA. But the fact was that the people who were supposed to actually utilize these facilities and systems were not adequately trained, and they did not have the experience to use this effectively. So they actually contacted us and told us that they had this great facility which was set up with the support of KOICA, but they were just simply not making very good use of it, so they needed help. And we were very interested because the Hanoi Open University really wanted an online
아시는 분도 있겠지만 교육 문화가 거의
assessment system. And you may know this, but in Vietnam, the educational culture is very similar to Korea.
성적에
Academic achievement is very, very important in the Vietnamese society.
이 온라인 평가 시스템
And so for them, online assessment system is very important. And one of the key challenges is to prevent cheating on tests, which is a challenge that we are also trying to solve.
온라인 평가 시스템을 구축을 했습니다.
Now, KNOU this year established our own online assessment and evaluation system.
구축을 해서
Of course, we had this plan built earlier,
그다음 이제 베트남
but we actually accelerated the actual implementation of the plan due to COVID-19. So we shared our online assessment system with Hanoi Open University, and on both sides, we tried using it and exchanged feedback on our experience. Now, this is the Korea Funds and Trust project. We are
사업을 같이 했습니다.
involved with UNESCO,
대상으로 했는데요.
KFIT, the Korea Funds and Trust
정말 우리가
project,
IT 기반의
and
교육을 하기에는
this is primarily focused on Africa, and of course the environment and the infrastructure there is quite backward-looking. So we worked with Mozambique and Rwanda. So let me briefly talk about these projects. One of the key challenges in Africa is that they lack learning material.
모잠비크 쪽에서도 요청한 게 디지털 교재를
Mozambique wanted to create digital learning
저희가
contents.
이제 했던 게
So
디지털
what we
교재를
did
어떤 식으로 만드는 게 좋으냐 교환 작성
was to
그럼 만들려면 시설이
So we taught them about planning the instructional material,
어떤 게 이제 아이디어를 냈냐면 요즘은 사실
but of course they did not have the necessary hardware, software to create
저도 지금 제가
contents.
연구실에서
In my case, I have ample infrastructure in place, fully equipped with computers, and we also have a studio on campus that we can use to create digital contents. But they did not in Mozambique. So what we did was we would
이게
provide a list of the minimum
스튜디오라고 표현을 하는데
setup that would be needed to create what we call a micro studio with necessary lighting and the minimum level of equipment. So a micro studio could be created with a very economical budget of maybe 3 million Korean won. So we provided the information necessary to create such a micro studio. And also the software licenses are quite expensive, so we recommended open source software. Similarly, Rwanda had challenges, so we provided similar solutions that we provided to Mozambique and shared this with our Rwandan partners. And we had them actually videotape their contents. And we were able to provide feedback on the filmed contents and the way in which they created these contents. So we don't necessarily need very fancy, high technology to create digital learning contents. We could use appropriate level technologies in these developing economies. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. Korea National Open University has extensive experience in delivering online education. And thank you very much for sharing how you supported the partner countries in other regions. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Chang-Hwan Kim, who's the Director General of Education Policy Network of KEDI, who's going to talk about educational statistics. So again, 15 minutes, Dr. Kim.
Good morning. As introduced, I am Chang-Hwan Kim from KEDI. I'm the third speaker of this session. I want to talk about Korea's educational statistics and how we used this to provide consulting services to developing countries. Starting 1997, my organization runs Educational Survey and Statistics Research Division. So we collect statistical data, run modeling, and also we conduct web survey as well. So this area has progressed quite a lot in past years. So we shared the experience with developing countries. So I want to talk about the background and the project and our achievements and the future tasks. First, the background of our program. So we received 10-year worth of budget from the government to pursue this project. And with this budget, we selected countries in Asia and in Africa. So we wanted to collect statistical data in these countries and provide consulting services to them. So the first phase is now done. Now we are at the second phase of the program. Then why are we helping developing countries? Because Korea itself was once a developing country. We were once a recipient of international aid, and now we are a donor country. So we want to pay off our debt, and we also want to share our own experiences and help others to develop as well. So that's one reason why we work with the developing countries. And second reason, we believe that developing countries will be an important partner to our further development, not just developed countries. And the government is also pursuing new southern and new northern policies. And also we receive requests for assistance from emerging or developing countries. So they want to learn about Korea's development model, and particularly after the COVID-19, they want to learn about Korea's response to COVID-19 in terms of how we utilized technology and online platforms, etc. Then why statistics? Well, statistics basically data, numbers, and data is very important. Data has been always important. When we make decisions, sometimes we don't have sufficient statistics. Then we rely on our own personal experiences and other people's experiences. And over time, once we accumulated statistics, then we can base our decision making more on statistics. So ideally, statistics become the basis for proposals and decision makings. So statistics are really important and foundational in terms of policy decision making as well. So statistics needs to have a good quality because otherwise we will base our decision making on our personal experiences. So in order for us to make good decisions, we need to have a good quality data, statistics. So we pursue international cooperation based on statistics, and it's not just us saying that. International organizations are also saying the same thing. Starting 2016, the UN put forward this SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. And prior to SDG, there was MDG, Millennial Development Goals. So under this new SDG, we need to meet 36 indicators, meaning that we need to have statistics, otherwise we cannot measure our progress. In the case of Asia, so this is the current status of SDG, and the status varies from country to country. Some countries are doing well in terms of developing statistics. So you can see the variables, for example, region, gender, education level. So depending on which variable you choose to look, still not enough data is collected in many Asian countries. So capacity is really important. We need to have the capacity to collect data. Many developed countries have been pursuing to increase capacity in developing countries. Still, developing countries are developing countries. They still need assistance and help from developed countries. So, fundamentally, we really need to empower the developing countries' capacity so that they can truly stand on their own. So to that end, Korea has been working hard to enhance developing countries' capacity. So this also changed the framework or the paradigm of Korea's assistance to developing countries. Now Korea is focused on developing other countries' capacity. So this is the kind of process of developing other countries' capacity. And also we try to develop the SDG indicators. And it's not about just a more developed country unilaterally instructing developing countries how to make an indicator. No, we help them to develop their indicators on their own. So this is our project and the conceptual words used in our project. So as you can see here, indicator, capacity, these things are important to us. And we've been hosting international conferences. We've invited people from emerging developing countries to come and learn in Korea. So for the first phase project, we chose Vietnam,
Sri Lanka,
아시아의 몽골,
and
이렇게 세
Mongolia.
나라를 선정해서
So we chose these three countries for our phase one project when we provided consulting services. And we did that with the cooperation of UNESCO in Bangkok. And we have decades of experiences of collecting and utilizing statistical data. So we shared our experience with these countries so that they themselves can have the capacity to collect their data and develop statistics. So hopefully, after our consulting services, these countries will have a better capacity. But to do that, 3 years is not enough. I'd say easily it takes 2 decades. But still 3 years much better than say 6 months. So we conducted this consulting project for about 3 years, but definitely I believe that it needs to be expanded further. These are the goals of the consulting project. So ultimately, I hope to see these developing countries to have the capacity to develop the SDG indicators as required by the UN SDG. So the key elements of our consulting program is education statistical system and also manpower training as well. And for the consulting, we also developed our own methodology. This is not the first development assistance program that Korea conducted. So based on our past experiences, we firmly believe that the consulting needs to be based on the real demand from these developing countries, and the participants really need to have a hands-on experience. So participatory consulting is important. And also, consulting project needs to allow participants to have a lot of experience. So it needs to be experience-based consulting, which also means field-based consulting. So this was the consulting plan for the past 3 years. Then what has been our achievement so far? Well, we had some quantitative results. So what's quite notable here is that this was actually commissioned as a research project from the government, and we worked with the COICA as well, because so we applied for a training project under COICA, and our project was adopted by COICA. So we were able to provide a project to developing countries. Now we want to develop this into formal ODA program. So in the case of Mongolia, we are having really visible outcomes, as you can see on the slide. And in Vietnam, the Education Statistical Center was expanded and reorganized after our consulting project. And also, with Vietnam, even the education minister is very keenly interested in this project. In Sri Lanka is still kind of weak in terms of infrastructure and institutions for collecting statistical data. So we help them out a lot, and including manpower training opportunities as well. And our projects have been evaluated positively by these participating countries. What about future tasks? This year, due to the COVID-19, our project was really hit hard. International cooperation itself requires people to meet together and for us to go out on the field. But that has been impossible due to COVID-19. So we moved a lot of activities from offline to online, but still online is very limited. So going forward, we need to think about how to pursue our international cooperation efforts. So once again, as I mentioned earlier, online portion is much bigger and offline portion is much smaller in our daily life due to COVID-19. So going forward, we believe that O2O or the connection between online and offline is going to be very important. One positive thing out of going online is that actually we can meet more often. So online element can be beneficial as well for education programs. And Korea has a lot of experiences in terms of development assistance. KOICA and KSD and other Korean government bodies have been active in this area. So once we aggregate these experiences from separate organizations, maybe we can build a K-education platform through which we can share our experiences with developing countries. And in K-Edu platform, KDI actually has a lot of experiences of developing education content and platform. So for education content, once again, my organization has a lot of experience in developing education content. So we can develop widely applicable education content and then put that on the K-education platform that I mentioned earlier. And KOICA is the main government body or government agency for Korea's ODA programs. But with the COVID-19 situation, as we heard from Ms. Soo-Yang Choi from UNESCO UNEVOC, now international cooperation activities can take place in small cities in Korea, just as in Paris or in New York. So in that sense, we don't need to be discouraged. And actually, we can also have education cooperation micro-college in Korea. And we've been pursuing a lot of education projects. But we sometimes, it's hard to know what kind of impact these projects have in what kind of sectors. So we need to understand the impact from these projects so that we can have more efficient and effective program in the past. So to that end, big data can be a useful tool. Online training programs are being run a lot, and that is going to be the case in the future as well. So hopefully it can improve the efficacy of Korea's training programs going forward. This will be the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Kim, for your presentation. So you talked about Korea's development assistance project around education statistics. This was a 10-year-long program, and we have quite a lot of know-how. KDI has a lot of know-how about statistical survey. And so already 6th year, we are in the 6th year of this 10-year program. So 4 more years to go. So thank you very much. Our final presentation for this morning is going to be on the promotion of educational access in the developing economies in the situation of COVID-19. And Mr. Han-gil Nam, who's a project manager at EBS, will be delivering the presentation. Good morning. I am Han-gil Nam, and I'm from EBS, the Korea Educational Broadcasting System. I'm going to talk about how EBS has evolved and responds responded to COVID-19 situation and how we have been partnering with and supporting developing economies. And the example in point would be our ODA project involvement with Cambodia. EBS has 8 different broadcasting channels, and we also have a plethora of online educational platforms. And we've been cooperating with the Educational Ministry and government agencies in order to respond effectively to COVID-19. There was a lot of confusion at the onset of COVID-19. We had, through TV, we provided broadcasted class materials so that primary school students and secondary students could engage in learning. So at the appropriate class times, we provided the right kind of educational contents, and we also had 5 new TV channels assigned to us so that we could actually broadcast to different level students different subject materials. And we have the eSoft software educational platform, and this has been upgraded to EBS online class. So each class in each school in Korea could create their own online class space where they can have interactive engagement. So it has now evolved into a platform where 3 million simultaneous visitors can connect and engage in learning. And there are online video conferencing features that allow classes to be conducted online, and we continuously upgrade this system to meet growing needs. EBS was first founded thanks to this particular report that I'm citing on this slide. In 1967, Professor Morgan from the U.S., Florida State University, actually wrote a report titled Systems Analysis for Educational Change, the Republic of Korea. And as part of the educational reform that is necessary, he cited that Korean education television system would be very helpful. And so with the help of U.S. aid loans in 1972, KEDI was founded, and KEDI also provided the necessary budget that has been allotted by the government. And also there was U.S. aid and Exim loans, which purchased the various broadcasting facilities to create EBS. And then later on, we were able to establish EBS Cambodia. Now, EBS was formally given its current name of EBS in 1990. So KEDI established its educational broadcasting channel in 1974, but the current name EBS was given in 1990. And with the changing of times, EBS has continuously upgraded itself and expanded its roles. Now, currently, according to the Korean Educational Broadcasting Corporation Act, the role of education is to supplement school education and support the lifelong learning of the Korean people and learning of democratic values. Now, EBS has been given various roles. In November 2020, there were a number of amendments made to the Korean Educational Broadcasting Corporation Act. Now, this amendment allows for EBS to more proactively respond in situations of national disasters. So that means EBS is a broadcasting company, but at the same time, EBS must respond to emergency situations where education educational delivery is challenged and really needs to play a greater role as an educational provider. So that is the new amendment. Now, EBS does not dedicate itself to a single channel, but we use a number of different channels, whether it be TV or through internet, to make sure that education is delivered effectively. Worldwide, you cannot find a similar model that we have at EBS to actually create educational content and also to run its own broadcasting channel and also delivering services digitally. So this unique model of EBS has been very much a point of interest for different developing economies. For example, Vietnam, the VTV actually, excuse me, wanted to cooperate with us. So there was an MOU signed in 2014, and there was a training that was delivered in 2015, and in 2016, the VTV7 actually opened its education channel, and since then, we actually co-create many educational contents. Based on our partnership with this VTV7, we were able to embark on this ODA project involving our Cambodian counterpart. So EBS's involvement in the ODA project with Cambodia is supported by the Ministry of Science, Technology, and ICT. And from 2020 to 2022 is the project period. Now, the title of this project is the project to build educational broadcasting in Cambodia. And by building, this does not mean building a hardware facility. So we are actually focused on delivering content-related ODA. Now, let me go into the specifics of this project. There are six business areas, and we create a package of the 6 business areas to deliver support to Cambodia. So we want to help Cambodia to learn to create their own educational contents. So we help them create a master plan, and we provide consultancy to help them run their educational broadcasting, and we also help them create a platform through which they can deliver, educational contents via the TV, the mobile, and so forth. So we have interviewed many people in the educational sector in Cambodia to understand the needs and demands, and we decided that we should categorize our approach into 2: school education and lifelong learning. Of course, because we have a limitation as to the budget we can invest into this ODA project, we would have to prioritize. So we worked with Cambodia to prioritize the educational contents. And due to COVID-19, the secondary education content was decided as the top priority. So this would be our focus of creating educational contents. And at the elementary education level, there will be a focus on literacy and mathematics. And Cambodian government has a new generation school project, which is a very ambitious endeavor in improving education in Cambodia. And, in conjunction with that, we are going to work with Cambodian counterparts to create student quiz shows and other very experience-based opportunities. And in order to enhance the educational quality in Cambodia, it is very important to train the teachers and the educational officers in the education ministries. So we are also going to get involved in that as well. Now, there is a building that was provided by the Ministry of Communication in Cambodia, and we would install studios, but these studios would not be these large-scale studios, but we would just configure this with the very essential equipment so that this would be an economical endeavor. And of course, at the end of the day, we would have to be able to service the educational content. So we're going to co-develop a mobile and online platform. Our aim is to help our Cambodian partners to be able to continue to maintain this platform on their own, upgrade it and update it on their own. So we really need to involve the local Cambodian experts so that they can be the ones to maintain and update the platform going forward. Of course, this would be based on our initial EDS online platform, and then on top of that, we would have other features such as LMS and live video class functionalities, and we're also going to accompany this with online teacher and civil servants training. The Cambodian government has a Digital Cambodia initiative, and they are trying to build a digital government platform. And over the medium to longer term, we would like to have our online learning platform connected to this digital government platform being promoted by the Cambodian government. Online platform allows for diverse learning materials and contents to be shared, but of course that means that there needs to be a lot of equipment and network connection available in order for these contents to be accessible by the students. But unfortunately, in Cambodia, they're lacking in this regard, so we would need to supplement access by providing TV channel delivery. But of course, given our limited budget, it would be very difficult to do all of this. So, in Cambodia, instead of setting up an independent educational TV channel, we are actually going to dedicate some channels from an existing terrestrial broadcasting system to be education focused. And medium to longer term, of course, it would be ideal to have an independent educational broadcasting system to be established, much in the manner that we have at EBS. Now, the MPTC is the key ministry involved, and we also work with Ministry of Education, and also we work the Ministry of Information Technologies, so that we can get we have the support from these ministries so that this project will be sustainable even after our 3-year project. And we continue to communicate the need to be able to extend this beyond the 3-year project period that we have at hand. So this is our timeline. We hope to begin servicing educational contents in March 2022. So we are working very hard to develop a master plan fully based on a complete demands and needs assessment, but due to COVID-19, this has been quite challenging. But at the same time, COVID-19 highlights the need for this kind of educational delivery platform. So we have contents ODA project, and also we can deliver different educational module support. And I think this is our unique competitiveness as an ODA provider. And EBS will endeavor to play an important player in ODA sector going forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Nam. Please, could you just take a seat on stage because...
아, 예. 약간 쉬는 시간이 있군요.
Oh, excuse me, we do need to clear the stage a little bit. So we are going to begin our panel discussion in a couple of minutes. We will invite our presenters and our three panelists to come up to stage for the panel discussion.
예, 바로 이어서
So we are going to move on to the discussion session. So the four presenters, I think we've introduced them. Now we have three designated discussants. I'd like to introduce them to you. So at the end of the stage, there are three panelists. So first we have Secretary Hae-won Park from the Ministry of Education, and we have Professor Dong-ju Choi from Sungmyeong Women's University,
마지막으로
and Mr. Gyu-hee Hwang from Crivet.
지금 제 시계로 정확히
Right now, we are at 10:16, so we are very punctual as scheduled. For the next 20 minutes, we are going to have discussion.
진행할 텐데요. 일단
First of all, I'd like to ask the three designated discussants to deliver their comment, and I'm afraid I can give you 4 minutes each. And then we have about 8 minutes left. And we have audience joining us online, and also a couple of people in the audience on site as well. Or even among our speakers and panelists, we can ask questions each other. Why don't we start with Secretary Park? Good morning. I am Hae-won Park from Ministry of Education. Thank you very much for inviting me as a panelist here. And it was a great pleasure for me to listen to various presentations about global cooperation in the area of education. The Ministry of Education is also thinking hard about how to approach international cooperation in education in the era of COVID-19. So we need to think about how to utilize online platforms. So all the presentations were very helpful for me, so thank you. And also we have GSK program. So despite the COVID-19, the GSK program has been doing well thanks to the help from NIIED. So going forward, we are thinking about how to continue and even expand the current program in this COVID-19 era. Going forward, we want to know what will be the new demand in the post-COVID-19 world. So I believe that education and ICT are important areas for future demand for international cooperation in education. And so in EBS talked about online platform and TV.
So I found those examples of ODA in developing economies very interesting. And I think based on that, what kind of other cooperations will be possible is something that the Ministry of Education is very much interested in. In fact, we really want to continue to share our experiences in development and development cooperation with partner economies. So if you can provide us with ideas as to how to effectively do that, that would be very helpful. And with regards to ODA, we had traditionally focused a lot on higher education sector. So there has been a lot of student exchange between universities, but we do want to expand this to include vocational education and also to secondary school related cooperation. So in addition to the university level cooperation, we really want to expand. So we are thinking about different ways of doing that. And also in having, teacher exchanges, we want new ideas, perhaps using online and internet technologies. And also with regards to attracting foreign students into Korea, we want to improve our certification and accreditation systems, and the Ministry of Education is discussing that a lot.
So your presentation was very helpful for me in that regard as well. And also in the post-COVID-19 world, well, some people say that things are going to be different starting the second half of next year, but the current situation is going to continue for the time being. So given that, what can be the direction for Korea's ODA? Well, in a way, we can take this as an opportunity. Korea has a lot of experiences in developing online education platforms and content. So we are actually receiving a lot of requests from other countries to share our experiences. So COVID-19 can actually be an opportunity for Korea to share our education experiences and expand our boundary in that regard. Thank you very much. So thank you very much. So I believe that the Ministry of Education receives a lot of feedback, and definitely today's presentations about online platform were very helpful for the ministry. Now, Professor Che.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to participate as a panelist in this very important session. I would like to just make 5 short comments. And with regards to attracting international students into our universities, I actually was involved in my own university in attracting international students. Of course, this actually has significant spillover effects economically, but NIIE's analysis has focused on the Anglophone countries. But I think we really need to have further analysis that would involve strategies to attract students from non-Anglophone countries. I think the first thing we need to consider is this: in Anglophone countries, a lot of in many of the cases, the very early educational opportunities are very extensive. And secondly, our target for attracting international students should be targeted in a very pragmatic approach, because we still have a lot of international students who want to study agricultural studies in Korea. So we should look into that demand. And also, because of BTS and K-pop popularity, there is also a lot of interest in entertainment-related studies. So these interests are very much connected to the competences that Korea is known for. So we need to smartly target based on our own competencies. And the universities are very confused because there was a call for creating English education and classes delivered in English. And then we were told that that doesn't really help in terms of our evaluation results. So it's very confusing. But anyway, oftentimes our job market is very limited, so those students who are coming from abroad, ultimately they might have to seek employment in Anglophone countries. Therefore, I think we need to recognize the value of the classes delivered in English. And I also enjoyed the presentation by the gentleman from EBS. This is an area where we are really at the forefront, and where we can really pride ourselves in being advanced. And if we can actually create a Korean brand for making our ICT-based education delivery as a competitive offering for international markets, I think this would be very great. And I think we could have greater collaboration between the Ministry of Science and ICT and Ministry of Education partnering and branding it that way as well. And finally, I would like to talk about the statistics related presentation. When I talk with experts, one of the key demands that policymakers abroad have for Korea is to collect statistics and analyze statistics, whether it's RHQ or HQ, whether it's the regional headquarter or the global headquarter. Oftentimes, statistics is very valuable, and oftentimes it requires a lot of resources to analyze and collect statistics. So it's very difficult for them to take this on themselves. So I think Mr. Kim presented a very important project, this statistics project. Maybe it could be created as a sort of an agency in it by itself, and expanded beyond the realm of a single project, because this could have a very good contribution to the ODA space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the ODA, specializing ODA in the area of consulting, I think that was a great advice. So last but not least, I'd like to invite Mr. Hwang for his comments. So I learned a lot from all the presenters, so thank you a lot. Particularly Ms. Che from UNESCO UNEVOC mentioned about Korea's role in the international cooperation and in the ODA area, and also all the presentations about ODA in education using big data and new generation skill as well. And also empowering public servants, government employees' capacity. That was also very impressive. So I want to talk about the post-COVID-19 world. I think this is definitely something we need to think about. Even after we overcome the COVID-19 situation, contactless era is already upon us. And we are also entering into what's called the smart era. So online learning, online meetings are now kind of becoming the norm. Look at today's convention. It's being live streamed online as well. And also smart factory, smart manufacturing, smart farms as well. So overall, industries are reshaping and systems are reshaping. Education system is going to change quite remarkably, I believe. So it's going to go beyond the physical space. For example, now students can learn at foreign education institution, not hampered by physical boundaries. As Secretary Park mentioned earlier, she talked about importance of the mid-level vocational training. For me, mid-level education is not just limited to vocational training. Actually, in the higher education era as well, there is some element of vocational training. For example, medical school, law school, business school. So these are vocational training in a way. So what about design, for example? And also nursing. What about nursing? Nursing education. I think Korea definitely has competitive edge in this area. And also healthcare workers overall and healthcare policy as well. I think for these kind of high skill training program, education program, I think the ministry needs to think about. AR, VR are also becoming important. Enhanced reality, augmented reality, and virtual reality. Currently, these technologies can be quite expensive. But even without putting a lot of money into this, still there is a room for us to utilize these technologies without incurring a high cost. Another issue coming from COVID-19 is isolation. So we need to have a coalition. We need to have also compassion among people, and we need to have international coalition as well. So I hope that the education ODA can incorporate these elements as well. Thank you very much.
너무 열정적인 발표여가지고
Very passionate
내리고 있는데 약간 올려주시죠.
discussion was delivered by Mr. Hwang. His mask, he was so passionate in speaking that his mask had slid off a little bit, so we need to be careful about that. But anyway, we mind our safety measures very carefully here at the Global Korea Convention. So we had allotted 4 minutes each for the panelists. And now there were comments made by the panelists. So do the presenters have any responses to the comments raised by panelists? Perhaps Dr. Kim, would you like to begin? Maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute? Professor Choi from Sungmyeong Women's University gave me great point. So we need to analyze programs or cases in non-English country as well. So I talked about Asian countries like China, but I didn't feature much about English-speaking countries. So yes, I will work on that. And students' accommodation cost, and also students when they're teenagers, they're forming their identity. So that's internationalization of education in that area. We also need to think about that, but we need to be careful about that as well.
And culture is really a hot topic in education as well. And now GSK program includes a bachelor's degree as well. But for a more college, for example, 2-year college programs, maybe we need to invite overseas students as well.
네, 간단히
Dr. Kim?
이 저희 대학은 이제 원격 교육 중심 대학이니까
KNOU is focused on distance education.
이러닝 이제 IT 기반의 원격 교육이 이러닝이 필요하다고
And
벌써 한 10년 전부터
we've been talking about how it is essential to have e-learning based on, IT, and no one was really listening until COVID-19 really hit. And now, not just in Korea, but globally, there is this sense that e-learning is absolutely essential. And without e-learning, it would be very difficult to deliver educational ODA now. And so
이제 그런 거 이제 관점에서 이제
from that perspective, we need to change and shift our ODA in the education sector.
이제 교육 ODA 보면 직업
Now, when we look at our education ODA, we often have it very segregated between primary school, secondary school education, and then higher education and vocational education. It's all separate. And I think perhaps it's because there are different agencies that specialize in these areas, but perhaps we could sort of foster a collaboration across these different agencies, across these different levels of education, because we could achieve an economy of scale. When we offer a small-scale ODA project, the partner country would not be interested because already there is these large-scale ODA assistance being provided by large donors like China. But if we offer an ODA project that is very small in value terms, then it is very difficult to get the buy-in and interest from the partner country. So perhaps we could collaborate and put together a package having primary, secondary, higher education, and maybe vocational education all together into a package. I think that would be more attractive. So I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, KOICA, and maybe the Finance Ministry should have been here to really hear this. We should really send them this message.
I will be brief, and Professor Che gave me a great word of encouragement, so thank you. And conducting education statistics projects in developing countries, that was quite new. That was a novel attempt back then. So because of that, people do not find it much credible sometimes. But once people participate, then they understand how important this is. And also, when we go out and meet with the high-level officials in these participating developing countries, they highly regard the statistics projects. So, and data is really important. It's going to be a very important asset for any country going forward. So we believe that this project is a really future-oriented, significant project, and we want to foster more international cooperation in this area. I'd like to take all your feedback under advisement, and we'll try to improve our ODA program. Thank you.
Mr. Nam? Yes. Thank you very much, especially to the three panelists. Professor Che from Sookmyung University suggested that the Ministry of Science and Ministry of Education should, co-work on projects like this, and I fully agree with that. EBS also is working with the Ministry of Science and the Ministry of Education, and also there is the Communications Commission that's involved, the Broadcasting and Communication Commission that's also involved in this partnership. And so the Cambodian project that I mentioned, again, is involving the Ministry of Communications and also Ministry of Education. Initially, the initiative was taken by the Cambodian Ministry of Communication, which is why the Korean counterpart, which is the Ministry of Science and ICT, got involved. But this is, at the end of the day, is an education project, and we really need to think about the demand side of the equation. So we need to really co-work a team, create a team that can best serve the needs of the partner country. But oftentimes when the ODA opportunity arises, we often divide it up between the different ministries here in Korea. But again, we need to be flexible in co-working amongst Korean government ministries based on what is best to serve the demands and needs of the partner country. I hope that's something that we can see going forward. We are almost nearing the end of our session. Any further comments from the panelists? Ms. Park, maybe 30 seconds, please. We only have a minute.
죄송합니다. 제가 사실 올해 사실 교육부에서 This year, what was most unfortunate from the perspective of Ministry of Education is that collaboration projects, convergence projects, originally it was going to be done in conjunction with other educational institutions like universities and also with KOICA as well. But because of COVID-19, we couldn't proceed with those projects. We couldn't meet physically. So that was really unfortunate and regrettable from the perspective of the ministry. So going forward, when we think about future strategy, we can still work together. I hope that these other parties can come together and participate in the convergence project. So I'd like to ask for your interest and participation. And regarding statistics, sometimes we receive the feedback that we set up a program, a project, ahead of fully understanding actual demand. So we believe that data is really essential for us to identify real demand. So this is my request for you to gather and provide us with the quality data. Thank you very much. So Secretary Park actually gave us great remarks. I think that could substitute my concluding remarks. So here I'd like to conclude this session. So I thank all the presenters and the panelists. So this session has been about ICT, broadcasting, and higher education. The session can be viewed again on YouTube and on our event website. Thank you very much.